So to discuss some of these issues, especially around state capture, we're joined now by Lord Peter Hain. Specifically also to discuss his book, A Pretoria Boy. It begins with the story of how Peter Hain's journey came full circle when he used the UK parliamentary privilege in 2017 to 2018 to expose looting and money laundering supplied with the ammunition, as he says, by his deep throat inside the Zuma State. In so doing, he put South Africa's state capture and corruption on the front pages of the New York Times and Financial Times, which some suggest played a part in toppling of the former president. Lord Hain joins us now. Very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you, and nice to join you.
So I want to start with the statement how Pravin Gordhan, Nick Benedel and others set me up with deep throat to help bring down Zuma. It's quite a curious statement, makes for interesting dinner conversation, as you said. Please expand a little bit on answering this question, why you?
Because I came from South Africa. My South African-born parents were involved in the anti-apartheid struggle in the 1960s. I took up the fight when we had to go into exile in Britain, leading campaigns to stop the all-white Springboks in 1969-70 by invading the pitches and stopping them playing. And that played a vital role in mobilizing anti-apartheid forces and sealing white South Africa's isolation from international sport. And that's a story I tell in my book, A Pretoria Boy, because I was brought up in Pretoria and that was part of my hinterland. And then I was asked quite unexpectedly by leading figures in the ANC who wanted to stop the corruption and the state capture, which had been so rampant under former President Zuma, and wanted to return the country to the Mandela path of integrity and inclusivity and respect for the rule of law. And when I was asked to do this, because of course the corruption was not just the politicians at the top of government, though they were up to their necks in it, it was also international corporates involved in facilitating the money laundering and the looting of billions of rand from South African taxpayers, injuring the economy so badly and damaging the ability to invest in proper provision of health and schooling and housing and so on. That's why when I was asked to do this, I was able to expose what was happening, which then put the spotlight on all these international corporates, the banks, HSBC, Standard Chartered, Bank of Baroda and others, as well as McKinsey and KPMG and SAP and Bain & Co., who were all part of this murky story of which has been such a bad chapter in South Africa's recent history.
So as you speak about this milieu of the networks that are involved as well, so when you say what you are being asked to do, what do you understand, or what did you understand about what you're being asked to do? Because you also say the candidacy of the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa was also then pitted against the powerful Zuma machine, which had dispensed patronage for more than a decade. So was there a deliberate intention or attempt to boost the candidacy of the now president with the state capture expose?
It was not about getting involved in South Africa's internal politics or the ANC's internal politics, but there had to be a halt to the corruption. And President Ramaphosa is in the Mandela tradition. Now, not enough has been done under his presidency to stop this corruption. We've seen examples, including from his own ministers, but at least he is trying to change that. And the ANC, as I say in my book, The Pretoria Boy, will die and lose popular support unless it eradicates this corruption and returns the country to a path of integrity and good governance. Because what has happened, what happened under President Zuma and indeed former President Zuma, and indeed the attempt by his supporters to get him out of prison by almost staging a coup against the South African government and President Ramaphosa in recent weeks, is to damage international confidence as well as domestic confidence in the country. And when you do that, you deprive South Africa much needed investment to create jobs and create a strong economy and restore the position to what happened after the fall of apartheid in 1994, and under Nelson Mandela and Thabo Mbeki in the years of his early presidency, you saw growth, you saw rising jobs, you saw greater opportunities for all South Africans, regardless of their skin color. You have to return to that path.
So you talk about the state of the ANC, and I want you to reflect on that now, given the information that you have helped bring forth, the fact that we've seen President Cyril Ramaphosa appear before the State Capture Commission, and the criticism being laid at his feet that he may as well not have bothered, as he did not reveal much. What are your thoughts about his appearance there, and the impact of your actions and the information that's been revealed, especially when you talk about the state of the NC, you talk about the state apparatus as well as its role. You almost liken it to the Watergate scandal. Share your thoughts on all of this.
Well, the blunt truth is that President Ramaphosa, who's a good president, held in has enormous confidence internationally as well as domestically, would not have toppled former President Zuma's successor, his chosen successor, to keep the corruption gravy train going, unless he'd come from within the system. The way the ANC works and the way politics in South Africa works, an outsider could not have won that internal ANC election. It was probably only the deputy president who'd been biding his time and was able to win with such a narrow majority. Remember, he was only elected by 179 votes out of 5,000. So he has been restricted by the forces around him, and he's tried to do his best. People like me who were involved in the anti-apartheid struggle and saw former President Zuma and all his cronies betraying that struggle and trying to drag South Africa back simply to line their own pockets. What we need to do is build the future, and that is why we are doing what we can to support the restoration of South Africa onto a path of good governance and economic growth and success. And I think President Ramaphosa, we all would like him to be doing more. We'd all like to see the corruption eradicated completely. I think he's doing his best. He may be making mistakes, but he's doing his best. And I think that he has international support, including from anti-apartheid activists like myself, in trying to take the country forward.
So, I mean, part of the reason I'd imagine people write books is for posterity, especially to reflect on lessons learned. And I'd like to reflect on your life, being a former MP, somebody who has been the recipient of a national order that is the Grand Companion of O.R. Tambo in silver. What have you learned from this experience? What lessons are there for Europe, especially as you mentioned the involvement of even global financial institutions in this? And we know that state capture is not only an African phenomenon, it's a global phenomenon. So how do we use this exercise to claw back from state capture, and what instruction can those aboard learn?
Well, we all have to learn about these experiences. And, you know, corruption, as you quite rightly say, and I say in my Pretoria Boy book, because I'm a Pretoria boy by upbringing, is that, you know, there's corruption across the world. Britain, in dealing with the COVID pandemic, we've also seen corruption in Britain with contracts given out to cronies of government ministers. But the South African disease was especially serious and damaging to the economy, probably robbing the economy of a fifth of its wealth, and therefore damaging its ability to have decent public services and to support businesses in growing more jobs and prosperity. I think the lessons I draw from all of this, in over 50 years in politics, from the anti-apartheid struggle all the way into the top of British government, because of course I was a British cabinet minister in the Labour government under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, is we have to have good governance, and we have to hold our politicians to account. And for what it's worth, and it's not for me necessarily to give advice to South Africans of all backgrounds today. But to the extent that I can, I would say this. It is up to all of us to do what we can. Can't just blame the politicians. We can all be leaders in our own situation. Yourself as a leading journalist, others seeking the truth and trying to expose what is going on, the independent media in South Africa, which receives a lot of intimidation from politicians, brave journalists who are seeking the truth. We can all make a difference, whether it's in business or education or health or in our own communities. And that's what we need to do to get the country back on the path, which defeated apartheid and restored that tyranny to history, and was for the period of 10 years after that on the right path, to get it back onto that path and to become admired across the world instead of criticized as it was under former President Zuma, and to some extent is still living with that legacy, as well as the awful legacy of apartheid.
Lord Peter Hain, thank you so much for your time and sharing with us your experiences and your thoughts on your book, Pretoria Boy.